I was in my early 30s. I was making fairly good money. Hell, I owned a condo across from the zoo on Connecticut Avenue. And I was pathetic. I realized that I was becoming like those people you see on Match.com who actually think it's important that you understand that they prefer Northern Italian cuisine to Southern, yoga to Pilates. But if you really wanted to get to know them, you had to understand their relationship with their cat. So here's a bunch of pictures of my cat. What bullshit. What bullshit. I was the most important person in my own life, and I hated it. I realized I wanted to care about somebody else more than I cared about myself. I wanted to be a dad. So it took me a while, but eventually I got married to a woman who already had a wonderful 9-year-old daughter named Molly. And Jane and I tried to get pregnant, and when that didn't work, we tried fertility treatments using a donor egg. And after 2 transfers, it didn't work. We realized we were out $30,000 that we didn't, in the technical sense, own. And so we tried to adopt. And it wasn't long before this beautiful Vietnamese girl, 6 weeks old, fell into our laps almost overnight. We got her on Easter Sunday, and we named her Lily. And I was crazy in love with this child. I would put her on her changing table and tug her little arms and legs, and she would coo in delight. And I thought, this is it. 10 weeks later, I was getting off a plane, and there was an announcement. Mr. William Heavey, please see the gate agent, who turned out to be an Arlington County Fire Department officer who led me into a little room and shut the door and said, Mr. Heavey, Lily went into cardiac arrest this morning at daycare. And we rushed her to the hospital in an ambulance, and she didn't make it. And I'm taking you there now, where your wife and stepdaughter are already waiting for you. And all I can remember from that ride is staring at the lock on the glove compartment of the cruiser. I was convinced that my staring at it was the only thing keeping the world together. And then if I looked away, even for an instant, the world would turn to smoke and ash, and I'd be sucked up out of the window and gone. So that's how we lost Lily. And I went off the deep end for the better part of a year, and eventually got myself arrested for bow hunting about 20 miles north along the Potomac River on what turned out to be federal property. And I realized that I wanted to get arrested. I wanted someone to see how broken I was. And after that, I think Jane would have been okay giving up, like maybe the universe had spoken. And I couldn't give up. I just couldn't. So we cranked up the machinery again. And we found this woman in Oklahoma who would be giving up what she already knew would be a daughter who would be born by C-section, which meant we could be there at the birth. 2 weeks before, the phone rang. Mama's water just broke. Get on a plane. And Jane couldn't come till the next day. But that night at 2 a.m., I walked into a Tulsa hospital room and was given this tiny red-haired girl wrapped in a blanket. And the girl and I spent the night in a bare hospital room. And I was afraid to go to sleep for fear that I might roll over onto her. And about 5 a.m., oh, I forgot, I told her that her name was Emma and that I loved her. And at 5 a.m., Emma had her first poop. Nobody had told me about meconium, which is that first baby poop that looks like green coal tar, like the poop of someone who is not long for this world. So I did the intelligent thing, which was to freak out and run to the nurse's station. And I knew they were lying when they told me this was perfectly normal, because if this were perfectly normal, I would have known about it. And they nearly had to put me in restraints before I calmed down. Emma was just getting started scaring us, of course. There was a time she ate a half bottle of blood pressure medication, had to be rushed to the hospital and made to eat the equivalent of 2 large briquettes of activated charcoal, which worked, but had the bonus effect of making her look like an extra on The Walking Dead. The time, I don't think she was 3, we took her to one of Molly's dive meets. Emma couldn't swim. We're all in street clothes. But she knew an opportunity when she saw one. So we go into the swimming pool, and there are 300 people sitting around, and a perfectly smooth, empty swimming pool. Emma took off running, knowing, I'm sure, that I would follow her. And the next thing I knew, I was in midair thinking, you know, you actually had time to take your cell phone out of your pocket. But Emma survived, and she grew into this amazing, big-hearted, passionate, resilient child. And I can still make her laugh until milk comes out her nose. Kind of my personal barometer of a good relationship. She's also sullen and defiant and obstreperous and a huge pain in the ass. I've never felt more incompetent or clueless or inadequate than in trying to be a good father to this child. Emma's 18 now. She graduates from high school in 3 days. In 7 days, she moves to Denver with her mom. And I'm not sure what happens after that. But I do know that Emma's the child the universe meant for me to raise. And I know that it's only thanks to her that I'm no longer the most important person in my own life. Thank you.